morning. I'm Dr. Sunanda Samathar Colorado, co-hosting the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford, coming to you live at 10 o'clock every Thursday morning on Wjzz Cool TV, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former world-class athlete, and conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, longtime civil rights crusader, and the author of 6 Detroit-oriented books: The Poet Emperor of Earth, What Old Men Know, Creative Insubordination, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run, and another forthcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. He also has a show on WCHB AM 1340, Detroit's gospel station, Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. That's Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. His books are available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or just by calling the good doctor at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. John Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy. He has received the Detroit City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year in 2001, and a Detroit track was named in his honor. His website is www.alifeontherun.com. And his email address is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. Now, without further ado, I present to you that crusading old native Detroiter, Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Dr. Sunanda Corrado, that PhD from Columbia University, who is an anthropologist by training. And Dr. Corrado has been teaching at Wayne County Community College District for over 10 years, but she looks 17, so how could she have been doing that? There's something wrong with that.
I just bumped into one of my previous students.
Yeah, hey, right out there.
Oh my gosh.
They interviewed me across the street.
A thriving, vibing artist.
Yeah,
God bless her.
Yeah. But
her name now is Jesus Washington.
Jesus Washington.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, she just interviewed me. But Dr. Corrado is currently a researcher for the Detroit Equity Action Lab that's housed in the Wayne State University Law School. And she's founder and CEO of Education by Design. Education by Design. And you know, we have today in the studio Anthony Adams, who is running for mayor. And Lord knows we need a guy like Anthony Adams at the helm in the mayoralty, because we have got some problems that we're going to be talking about. And also, you know, I've got to make sure that I do my plug again. You know, we had Letitia Johnson
John,
on the show. Yes.
One thing, your show has changed on WCHB. It no longer repeats on Monday. It's Tuesdays, right?
No. I made a mistake. It's Monday evening at 6:30. The WCHB show runs Monday evening at 6:30. Right now, it reruns. You know, okay. I deliver it on Saturday morning at 9:30 in the morning, and then it reruns Monday evening at 6:30, and it's rerunning again. Actually, today at 1 o'clock.
So there's a third run.
Yeah, there's going to be a rerun today at 1 o'clock. So
okay.
Anybody who wants to listen to my WCHB show, if you're listening to WJZZ today, you can tune in today at 1 o'clock to WCHB AM 1340, because there will be a rerun. And I plug all the people that I've been supporting on that show then as well. And you know, last week we had Letitia Johnson. She's running for District 4, in District 4 for City Council. I support her. Whom else did we?
W.F. Hodo, write-in for District 3. W.F.H.O.D.O, write-in for District 3.
Yeah, he's running against Scott Benson,
who is unchallenged so far.
Probably going to go to jail, you know. But
goodness.
Okay, and who else? Let's see, who else? I support Mary Sheffield. You know, I always support her. She's my council person in District 5. I'm supporting Linda Bernard for Police Commissioner in District 2. Supporting Scotty Bowman, of course, Police Commissioner in District 4.
Linda's an incumbent, right? And Scotty's coming up?
That is correct. And who else? Denzel McCampbell is coming on next week on this show. He'll be on next week.
And just about every candidate you support has reached out and come out and talked on our show and numerous other grassroots platforms, right?
Well, we even had Coleman Young call in, and we support him too, by the way. There will be an educational forum on Friday, October the 22nd. That is tomorrow.
Yes. From
5 p.m. until 8 p.m. To discuss the proposals on the ballot for November the 2nd. Citywide council candidates have been invited. But Anthony, it might be a good thing for you to go too. Just to show your face. That's going to be at the Samaritan Center.
Okay.
It's going to be at the Samaritan Center at 5555 Connor Avenue. And for more information, contact Tawana Simpson. That was Tawana Simpson, who was one of the good board members that made me superintendent way back in 2012. Contact Tawana Simpson at 313-422-3617. That's 313-422-3617. Or contact Stephanie Rivers at 248-862-8453. Stephanie Rivers at 248-862-8453. And L. Williams is going to be moderating that program. Man, this chair is squeaking. I hope it's not picking up on the mic, but it probably is. So what else do I have to do before we interview Anthony? Reverend Pinckney in Benton Harbor, where the tap water is poisonous, shades of Flint, is trying to...
Right next to fresh water.
Exactly. And he's trying to buy 1,500 cases of water per month to distribute to residents of Benton Harbor. So you can go to bhbanco.org. That's B as in boy, H Banco, BANCO.org. bhbanco.org, where there is a PayPal. That's bhbanco, BANCO, bhbanco.org. And Reverend Ed Pinckney is trying to help the people of Benton Harbor by getting bottled water for them because the water right now is poisonous. I'm not going to talk about President Biden right now because maybe later on, but right now, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm not going to talk about this either.
Wow.
Okay, we're gonna segue right into interviewing Anthony Adams, who is running for mayor in the city of Detroit at a time when Detroit has given up its schools, it's given up its library, it's given up its art institute, it's given up Belial, etc., etc., etc. So Anthony,
transportation, social services,
all of it.
Right.
Our children.
Right. So Anthony, welcome to the John Telford Detroit show.
Doctor, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, we go back.
We go back. We have history.
Yeah, we've got some history. In fact, I got a book for you. I don't know if you ever got this book. If you didn't get it, I'm gonna give you one.
All right.
But okay, I want to ask you this right off.
Yes.
How will you address the rising levels of crime and violence in the city of Detroit?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show and giving me the ability to really talk about my platform, my progressive platform of how we actually transform the city of Detroit. When we talk about crime, we always have to talk about education and poverty because they are so intricately connected together. When we arrest people and we do a chronology of their life, we find similar things. We find one that they have very low education. Oftentimes they come from the product of broken homes. They don't have a high education skill levels, and they really have a high level of hopelessness. They've grown up oftentimes in very stressful environments, and so we believe that by arresting people, and sending them to jail was going to be our solution to crime. Well, we know from the crime bill in the 90s that mass incarceration does not work. And then we end up with a population of people who have felonies, oftentimes a lot of people wrongfully convicted of crimes, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to get ourselves out of it. I've been advocating that we've got to go old school interventional style policing. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that we know who the problem people are in our community. We identify them through arrest records and data that we have. And so why are we not going out and approaching them to say, look, what is it going to take to actually help you get your life together? What will it take for me to provide you with job skill and training and education? What will it take for me to provide you with a stipend while you're trying to learn and get your education? What do we have to do in order to help you clear your criminal record? What do we have to do in order to assist you in becoming a meaningful member of our society? Because if policing was the issue, we've spent more than $3 billion in policing ourselves. $3 billion that could have gone to providing early childhood education. $3 billion that could have been providing for enhanced support, financial support for the thousands of women who in this city who only make $28,000 a year. I'm advocating I'm advocating that we've got to really change our paradigm for how we attack the problem. Our policing strategy is all reactive. It's a green light. I hit the button, the police come.
Well, it's
punitive
punitive too. You're talking about progressive solutions rather than punitive solutions, and these are the things that we have to embrace.
And you're talking about it from an experience of years of service to the city.
Exactly.
So could you describe kind of how your years of service and your legal acumen have helped to hone this platform?
Great. So, I moved here in 1981. I was a law clerk to the Honorable Anna Diggs Taylor. She was the first African-American woman who was a federal judge in the Eastern District of Michigan, having graduated from Georgetown Law and also graduated from University of Cincinnati. That's my original hometown, where I was born and raised, where I attended Cincinnati Public Schools. So I believe in the value of a good public education.
Well, you were the president of the school board here, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I was.
That wasn't when I was
no,
you served in several capacities in the city.
After I left my clerkship, federal judge, I went in private practice with the law firm. I then got picked to be an executive assistant to Coleman Young. I did that for 6 years, came back into private practice, worked at a big firm, Dykema Gossett. Didn't really like that big firm life. Started my own firm with 3 other attorneys. We grew that firm, very successful. Partners decided to split and do other things. I then became a public housing consultant. Always loved housing development, and worked on pretty much every major public housing development project in the city of Detroit.
I gotta tell you, I know I'm interrupting you, but I gotta get this in. Coleman Young followed my running career when he was a state senator. And a couple of my teammates, he was tight with Bullet Billy Smith and Cliff Hatcher. I mean, he knew them all. And it was long before he was mayor. We're talking about the 1950s.
Right.
But anyway, I have another very relevant question that I want to ask you. Detroit has a significant number of single female heads of household.
Yes.
What are your plans to assist this important group of citizens?
So, and we understand the connection between single-family head of household, children being raised in those environments. I was raised in a single-family household, so I had nothing but love for that because I was lucky. I had a mother. I was an only child, so she was able to instill within me everything that I needed in order to be successful in life.
That's very important.
But a lot of our children don't really have that same level of support, and our mothers don't have that same level of support. So when you're in a city where you have women that are challenged with transportation, they have to depend upon DDOT bus service, which is being cut, and they're trying to care for their children and get them to school. The question is, what happens to the children during the time period when the mother's seeking to provide help and assistance? And so what I've been telling everybody is that we got to change what we do. We have to first make sure that we have sufficient, adequate child care in our community. If a mother can't go to work and know that her child is being cared for and has a supportive and safe environment, that's stress on the mother, and so we've got to address that. We also have to address the educational deficiencies of the parents, of the mothers themselves. How do I help you upgrade the quality of your education? It's a form of human capital management. How do we assist in helping the people in our community to uplift and improve their lives so that they have the necessary skills in order to be fulfilled in their own environment?
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Commercial.
Yeah. And
Commercial,
you are
commercial.
watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment to our show and other programming offered. And thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Now, I kind of wanted to link the single mother
Yes.
idea with this expertise that you have in housing, because oftentimes I've said in class that Detroit is probably one of the few cities in the world where women own an extensive amount of property, and this has been intergenerational.
Yes.
And I noticed since the housing recession, when my students come to class, they don't wear their reunion T-shirts anymore when they go off in the summer. I mean, this has devastated the families, this housing recession, and the intergenerational wealth between women.
Well, what we've lost is that we have a punitive tax policy which punishes people who've owned houses for years. And when the mortgage crisis hit, and then you couple that with the mortgage tax foreclosure crisis, where we had more than 150,000 people lost their homes in the city of Detroit.
Jeez.
Many of them lost intergenerational wealth that their families had built up for years. Because it's not unusual in Detroit for a house to be in a family for two or three generations.
That's true.
House is lost, equity is lost.
Yeah.
Private investors come in from overseas, buying houses and renting houses
That's
back
right.
to people that they used to own. And so now we're in a city where 47% of the people actually own their homes. We have more people renting in our city.
We used to be the
versus
largest
actually
home
owning.
owning
And now
city.
we're the lowest because there's no
Wow.
commitment to changing. First of all, a punitive tax strategy which wipes out equity, which forecloses on people. Which I've already advocated to say, my first act as mayor will be to sign an executive order stopping the transfer of single-family homes to the Wayne County Treasurer for tax foreclosure. We need to be managing that process ourselves because that helped accelerate the blight that we see in our community, where people were literally forced out of their homes as a result of tax foreclosures, and then we end up with vacant homes in our house, and we end up with a bad issue of taxes and vacant homes in our city, which force people out of our community, which is why more people continue to move out of our city, because the irony is that housing is not affordable any longer in the city of Detroit.
And without housing, childcare isn't affordable either, because when women don't have property, they can't do these entrepreneurial kind of aspirations we set them to do for this new city of design.
Well, when you're
We're
talking,
really pushing them out.
when you're talking about women paying more than 50% of their income for housing, you have a perpetual payment plan on the water bill. You got a perpetual payment plan with DTE. We have everybody, I call it the city of perpetual payment plans. You go from one payment plan to the other, and when you're constantly living in a world of perpetual payment plans, you can't get to a higher level thinking, higher level aspirations, because most people in this city are just struggling to survive, which is why we have a high level of apathy in our own community, because people's hopes and aspirations have been lost, and they don't have anyone who's a voice that can speak to these issues about how we can be great, how we can make your family stronger, how we can help you get your life together. We're providing you with assistance and the tools that you need. We're not trying to tell you what to do, but we're giving you a roadmap for what we think can help you be successful in your life. All you need to do is come to the party and help us work with you.
So what has Duggins done since emergency financial management? Because it seems like our city is more in terms of indebted servitude than ever. First they took our services, but now the people themselves are indebted to the city, which is undemocratic.
Well, I think, what has happened is that the corporate class is clearly taking control of the wheels of the ship. And they're directing the policies that they want to direct. Right. And so what they've done systematically, and I'm going to say very skillfully, is they've created this illusion of how a progress would look for their community. And so when they talk about downtown, everybody's wonderful about the great things, and Dan Gilbert's doing all this wonderful stuff, and all that's wonderful. I love all that. But at the end of the day, when you have a tax capture policy that takes money away from our libraries, we only have 6 libraries open in the city of more than 600,000 people.
Yeah.
And you're talking about with the city with the literacy issues that we have,
Right.
where the library
Literacy
was the
and
portal.
housing.
Literacy is a major component part of why we have a high crime issue, because most people, a large percentage of the people who are arrested have literacy issues.
It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio, prison and not reading.
Exactly.
And I want to segue. I'm skipping around. I got some questions that I've written down, but there's one. You know, the many youth in our city graduate
Yes.
or leave high school and have limited opportunities, and this is what we're talking about. How are you going to access and assist these young Detroiters? Because that's been my major concern. The educational system has just really broken down in our city.
That's where we have to be. When you talk about education, we know that the mayor isn't technically responsible because they have an elected school board and a superintendent. What I've been advocating for is the creation of a chief education officer within the mayor's office.
I love it.
A person who's going to advocate on behalf of all children in the city of Detroit. You know, when you were superintendent and I was there, you know, we were the big dog in the city. We had the majority of the students. We had all the teachers. We had all the facilities. And now it's a much different world with the competition of charter schools, many of whom, from my perspective, are unregulated, and very little accountability on their part. And then we still have some Catholic schools. We have UAD and we have Loyola, 2 Catholic schools for boys. I'm saying that we've got to be about educational excellence in our community. We need someone outside the school board who will advocate for our children. So when you talk about mentoring programs, connecting schools and children with programs, connecting our young people with our senior citizen buildings, connecting them with skilled trades and the avenues and opportunities that exist there for people to make a great living if they don't want to go to college. You know, this notion that we got to put every kid on a college track, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your children, but a lot of children just aren't interested in education. So when you graduate, we have to make sure that our children are functional, that they can operate in different types of environment, that they have different skill sets. We don't recognize and reward different. Everybody got to be smart, but everybody's not necessarily smart academically, but they can be smart intellectually. They can be smart with electronics and mechanics. They can be smart with plumbing. Let us help you find your groove so that you can, when you graduate from college, if you want to go, the opportunity is there, but we have to make sure that we don't just simply nurture an environment of trying to force kids in the school where that's where they really don't want to be.
And you know, pre-COVID, Dr. Whitaker-Watkins brought up the statistic, the number of
That's
people...
Dr. Paula Whitaker-Watkins.
The number of students who have not matriculated pre-COVID was 90,000, which is almost equivalent to the schooling population in Detroit. Around Wayne County, altogether, there's 110,000, but 90,000 of the students who've never graduated from schools come from Detroit.
Which is a shame. And now with COVID, you know, we've
How do
lost.
we capture that population
Well,
that's
part
not
of
in school and not in institutions?
Well, part of it is that it's a data analysis situation. We have information, but we don't analyze our data.
That's what the
And
chief
so,
ed officer
and so
should
what
be
you got to do is you got to start beginning to compile this information to find out what does that number look like? Where are these children at? What are they doing with themselves? How do we get them into a process? What are the programs that we can design to help in the system? We've got to be much more proactive because they're out there existing and drifting, and we don't need people drifting and existing in our city. We need to try to figure out how we can help you become productive. How do we help you go back and get what you need? If it's a GED or putting you back in regular school so that you can get a high school diploma. If we're not about trying to help our young people, which are the predominant class of people who are involved in a lot of the crime that's being committed in the city, and I'm not making a generalization, I'm just stating the fact that when you look at the arrest records, it's borne out this way. If this is your problem population, we know where it comes from. It starts at early ages where children don't get adequate education, the problems aren't identified, and a lot of problems in the old days that they thought were behavioral problems were psychological problems, but they were treated in a much different manner. And so you've got to have skilled, trained clinicians inside our schools to diagnose these problems. But a lot of our children suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome from the environments that they
and
live
especially
in.
males, they're misdiagnosed with learning disabilities all the
Especially
time
right.
when it's emotional
Right.
disabilities that they're actually
So
dealing
you got to
with.
have people that advocate for these types of things. We got to see part of what the corporate community wants to do is they want to put a nice veneer on it. Everything is wonderful, and I'm saying we got to pull the scab back because it's got to heal. It only heals with air and light. And if we attract attention to these issues and talk about them in a constructive manner, there are segues to progress that we can create for our young people, which will ultimately spill over into creating a much better city for ourselves. It doesn't help us when companies move into our city and our people can't do the job.
So why hasn't all this veneer success spilled into a couple crevices?
It's a hard nut. It's a hard nut out here.
Why isn't the success shared?
This is hard work for one, and it has to be sustained work, and you got to have people that are committed to the work. You know, everybody likes to get up on the stage and with the bright lights, but the work is done in silence. And people have to toil in the vineyards. You're not going to get a lot of recognition for doing the heavy lifting, the things that used to go on. That was the greatness of the Detroit public school system. I tell people all the time, regardless of where you went to school back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you could get a decent education at every school.
It was one of the best school districts in the country.
Leading first
I was educated in the 1940s and 1950s in Detroit public schools. And I can remember I went to both Northwestern, got put out of there, but I got sent to live with my father on the east side, and I finished up at Denby, which was a real culture shock because it was an all-white school there. Right. but I can remember that, I mean, in our English classes, they were teaching Chaucer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we had we had a college education by the time we were in the 11th grade.
Yes.
You know, we don't have that anymore.
Well,
we got to
restore it. Force it. We have to force the system to conform to modern trends of teaching and learning.
Right.
See, you know, when we were growing up, you sat at your desk and you got hit on the hand with a ruler, and you did what you had to do.
We did.
You can't touch a child now. Because if you do, the parents will show up to the building. And
I did it at Finney when I came back. I was doing it a few times. It almost had to happen, you know.
Right.
But I don't necessarily advocate, you know, for hitting kids. But
well, we're talking sort of a change in the approach of how we actually educate our children, which is what a chief education officer can do. He can advocate for different things, different approaches, and then bring resources to help the school district and our charter schools who desperately need oversight.
Commercial.
And you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe to our several programming. And thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, one of the few black-owned platforms in the world.
And we've got Anthony Adams running for mayor on the John Telford Detroit Show on Wjzz Cool TV this Thursday morning between 10 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock, and we're asking him some very pointed questions.
Yes.
And here's another one that I'm going to hit you with, Anthony, because it has to do with improving our neighborhoods.
Yes.
You know, politicians always talk about improving Detroit's neighborhoods, but it's mainly lip service.
Yes.
It's mainly lip service. If you are elected, what is your plan to improve Detroit's grassroots, out in the hood neighborhoods?
So every neighborhood, and the way we're set up, we have blocks and we have streets, and we used to have a very strong network of block clubs in our community, and we don't really have that anymore. We have a political apparatus which oversees things, but it's not really directed to driving the resources at the most basic level, which is the block. And so when you have a mayor's office of neighborhood services, or whatever they call that office now, it should be about how you organize people at the ground level to empower themselves to be involved in their neighborhoods. And I don't see a commitment there. That's one thing. The second thing is you actually have to walk the city and see the condition of what goes on in this town. You can't sit down in the Coleman Young Center every day and direct people if you don't really spend time on the ground walking neighborhoods. And so I will make it a point to walk the neighborhoods every month to see what's going on, to be out here looking.
MBWA, Management by walking around.
And managed by walking around, because
Yeah.
and you bringing your department heads and your department directors out, because the complaints are pretty consistent in the pattern. The one is street maintenance and street tree trimming is horrible in the city of Detroit. Alley maintenance, they had this little push, election year push, I call it, to get out and clean certain alleys in certain areas. But it's atrocious, especially when you go on the east side, where you see overgrowth and you see things growing on power lines, which are impacting.
I go across the
city
street
service.
on East Jefferson, broad daylight, I
Tiger's
see
gonna
rats
jump out.
sometimes.
Right.
Rats in my day, back on 16th Street where I grew up,
Right,
you saw rats only at night.
right.
There are rats in the neighborhood across the street, right over on McClellan, in the daytime.
Right.
Now you know that something is not being tended to when
No.
you see that.
You've got to then reprioritize the efforts of city action towards the neighborhoods. I keep telling everybody downtown will take care of itself. I really don't need to spend any time down there.
So why are they ignoring the east side so much when right across 8 Mile, right across Mac, you got flowers, you got boutiques? Why aren't they just doing the other side of the street? Why don't they develop from the
And
outside?
it's not just only the east side, because
Yeah.
there's some really bad pockets
Because
on the west side
isn't that
as well.
the real safety issue?
It's
like,
well,
yeah.
what happens is when you look at land use policy, there appears to have been a policy to depopulate the east side
That's
of the
right.
city of Detroit, because you can ride on the east side and you could ride
Vacant lots all over the
for
place.
blocks,
Yeah.
and there's just a tremendous amount of vacant land. In
Right.
part because historically the city kind of grew east to west. You had a lot of older houses on the east side, a lot of frame houses. You don't have as many frame houses on the west side as you do on the east side.
I grew up in one,
It's
602 116th Street. It's
Yeah.
gone now, though.
Exactly.
And it's a playground from McMichael, the new McMichael's there.
Michaels.
My dog's buried in that playground.
Uh-oh.
I
my
buried my dog. He got shot. My dog rat. But anyway,
So
I'm digressing. I have a bad habit of digressing.
that's okay.
Okay.
So you have bad land use policy. You have depopulation of the city, and then you have a lack of attention and dedication of resources. So if we look on a map and with a metric to determine where we actually spend our money, well, we'll see that the bulk of our money is actually spent, in that 7.5 square mile area and in selected districts.
Yeah.
So whether it's West Village, Indian Village, Rosedale Park, so the targeted communities that he targeted because he wanted to make them safe. Then we see where there's been a disparity in treatment with respect to resources that are allocated. And so you can go on the east side and you see one street light in a block, where you go on the west side, you might see 5 or 6. So there's unequal distribution of resources, but there's also unequal distribution of emphasis in terms of how we focus on these areas. And I have to make it a point to focus on areas that have been slighted, that have been neglected, and are in desperate need of services and a commitment for people to want to help them. When I was on the east side yesterday, Evanston, near Dickinson, and walking the neighborhood with one of the citizens over there, it was a war zone. People were literally out in the open smoking crack cocaine. Prostitution is still a very, very heavy issue over there. A lot of abandoned houses, shooting galleries. It was something out of the 80s, literally.
Abandoned
And I'm
people.
saying, why are we not focusing on areas where people who are trying to hold on to their house? Lady said, I own my house. We've owned our house since 65, 66. She said they were the first black family to move on their street. And they're just desperately trying to hold on to something. But they said, how can we make it if I'm sandwiched in between, excuse me, 2 burnout vacant houses, one being used as a shooting gallery, and acts of prostitution are being performed right in my front door.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation, and then what I suggested is that we have to emphasize where we need to be. We've got to spend time, effort, and energy in these areas because these citizens are desperately crying out for service, and they aren't getting any service.
I mean, yeah, even the businesses around there are slightly illicit. Like older people don't want to walk into their own gas stations, walk into their own stores because they might not be selling what it seems to be.
Well, yeah.
It's totally Wild West.
We have a lot of compliance issues with respect to a lot of the gas stations and party stores, that operate in the city of Detroit, and that's a major emphasis of enforcement action for me. Because they're selling things they shouldn't be selling, and we gotta police. They have to clean up their areas. I mean, when I buy some gas stations, sometimes I'm appalled at the condition of what they're allowing to exist around their facility. And when you go inside the building, I can see why COVID was such a bad hit in Detroit, because inside some of these stores, it's a really bad environment. and we've got to begin to change that. People
the
need to
food
expect
desert.
more. The
With the
food
food
desert,
desert.
you know, when you talk about where we spend our resources and what we subsidize, I said that there are a couple of things that if I'm subsidizing something, I'm subsidizing people's ability to get food and to get fresh food. I'm subsidizing health facilities to allow for us to deal with the health inequities and access to health that we have in our city. I'm subsidizing programs that are supporting child care, child development.
Didn't we get $800 million in the Detroit Department of Health?
And we got $850 million the city got as a part of the Recovery Act money, but they allocated, I think, something of $40 million towards the Joe Louis Greenway. I love Joe Louis. Yeah. I love what he represents for the city. But when you're talking about people that need money and roofs, for their roofs, for their siding, for their front porches.
That was the health department, though. That was the health department.
It was for all of the city. Yeah,
okay.
It was for all of the city. And I'm just saying that the priorities need to be directed to where we need to be directed. We can get a greenway later after everybody's house is fixed, because I can't walk the greenway if my roof is falling in and collapsing in my house. But we need to stabilize our neighborhood. So it's neighborhood stabilization is where my attention it has to be, because the people who need the help the most, that's where they live, and they simply aren't getting it, which is why they're moving out of the city still in record numbers, even though everybody perceives this progress. They perceive that things are getting better. They talk about business coming to the city, and I'm saying, what benefit are you getting? If it comes in downtown Detroit, where there's a tax capture district, where there's special legislation designed to strip the property tax and the income tax, the city's not getting any benefit other than a big shiny building. And the shiny buildings are nice, but if you tell them you're taking our tax dollars that can be used to finance our libraries, to finance improvements in our schools, and help the city's general fund, what is the benefit there other than a building that exists that half the people in the city of Detroit, 3/4 of the people in the city of Detroit can't even visit, don't even know what it's for? And so I'm saying the emphasis on the home run approach to development, I'm through with that.
In fact, wasn't it when Duggan was married that they put those curfews on those kids? Remember, we had curfews on our kids too. They were limiting their traffic way before COVID and all of this. And
they obviously, you know, we got.
So what about transportation then?
Well, transportation is a major issue, and the major issue with transportation, it starts with the salaries that we pay our DDOT bus drivers. Our DDOT bus drivers are the lowest paid drivers in America. They qualify for food stamps, and the irony of it is these people perform yeoman service during COVID. They continue to work in very bad environments. But they continue to come to work, and I think they got a little stipend for hazardous duty pay, but there's not been a major increase in DDOT salaries. But when you run the numbers of what it would actually take to increase their salaries to give them a living wage, it equates to something like $6.5 million, $7 million budget increase. Spend the money to retain the drivers that we have, give them the hazardous pay that they need, upgrade their training, and then we have all these openings for positions. What is it for a young man who's not going to college to have a career path that says, look, you can get your CDL license, you can drive a public bus, you guys can make $45,000, $50,000 a year with some level of benefit? Why are we not trying to promote hiring from within, strengthening the base of people who live in our city, working with the people who live here? If we can't be focused on the people who live here, then what are we doing? They're the people who are here. They're the people who are still in the houses and paying the taxes.
I believe part of the proposal P that both of you supported also talked about providing internships for city kids for city positions later on, and for further aspirations.
They used to have a co-op program. I mean, you know, in Cincinnati they had a co-op program. That's how my mother actually started working for the city. It was a co-op clerical.
That's how it started.
I remember.
She went to Commerce High School and she learned how to type. And so they got her a co-op job. She would go to school in the morning, and then in the afternoon she would do her co-op job. And so when she graduated from high school, she had 4 years of service with the city at 18 years old. Well, she ultimately retired after 47 years, and was still a young person when she retired because it's co-op credit. But it was a career path that she found something that she really liked, she enjoyed, and she stuck with it. And so I'm saying that these are the types of things when you talk about how we bring our young people back in, how we get them engaged, how we get them involved. These are the kind of things they need to see what people do. And when you realize in most neighborhoods, some kids they never meet a lawyer unless they're in trouble. They never see a doctor. If you don't live in that environment and don't have access and exposure to that, then your view of the world stops at 8 Mile in the river. And we've got to be able to change people's focus and open up their minds, but you can't do that if you're constantly trying to survive in our city.
Most young men, and like I talk to them in my classes, don't believe they're going to survive into middle age, and when they do, they're quite surprised and trying to figure out what to do.
Well, when you figure that the average male who lives, black male who lives in Detroit, his life expectancy is 10 years less than white men outside the city.
Less than the age to collect Social Security.
There is some truth to that. And
That reminds me of a poem. And this is supposed to be a poetry program.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, but this poem
Roses
segues.
are red.
Right, yeah. This segues. This segues right into this poem. This poem is called The Centenarians. The Centenarians. Any brother who survives. Centenarian is a guy who lives 100 years.
100 years, yeah.
Any brother who survives 10 full decades worth of lives is a special kind of cat. Likely no aristocrat, if he lives them in Detroit, rather than the rich Grosse Point. He can therefore posit that he's an even rarer cat. We got the highest death rates by murder.
Yes.
Consistently.
Yes.
We're right up there with St. Louis and Chicago.
Yes.
And this is why you're talking about life expectancy for Detroit males being
and the
so
murder
low.
of children, we're in the top 2 as well.
Well, you got 800 children that have been murdered and killed in Detroit over the last 8 years, but there's not a peep about that. And all I'm just saying is that
800.
we all believe 800, and we all believe that we want the city to be great. We want the city to have a good reputation, but you can't have those things if you don't acknowledge your problems. And that's been my major issue. There's been no acknowledgement of the issues, because if you confront the issue head on, you have a much better chance of solving the problem rather than trying to constantly gloss over veneer that things are going well, things are happening smooth, and all these things are wonderful. And the reality is that the people that we need to make it in our city are not making it. The city's not working for everybody. It's working for the rich. It's working for the connected. It's working for certain neighborhoods, but it's not working for everybody. The people who we really need to touch are not getting what they need. And that's been my whole focus driving my campaign. It's all about how we uplift the little people in our community to help them do what they need to do. The people who live and exist.
Uplift this one.
Anthony Adams has been committed to helping everyone in the city, and that's what his campaign is about. And what are your contact points, Anthony? How can people reach you to support you?
So my headquarters is located at 19512 Livernois, right there at Livernois in St. Martin. My website is anthonyadams4mayor.com. That's FORmayor.com. My email address is aa4mayor@gmail.com. And our office number is 313-688-6032. I never called my own office number, but I believe that's what it is.
Well, say it all again.
All right. Website, anthonyadams4mayor.com. Email address is aa4mayor@gmail.com. Headquarters located at 19512 Livernois. And what I'll say, my Instagram is aa313 for mayor. And my phone number is 313-688-6032.
Okay.
And you can always look him up on Facebook.
Yes, Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I got them all.
Okay, commercial again.
And you are watching the John Telford Detroit Show, live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top media social platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Okay, I got another question for you, Anthony.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about community benefits.
Yes.
How will you approach community benefits moving forward, and you know, most of the community benefit agreements, you know, the current ones at least, have not been met. Is there anything you're considering doing to address that major problem?
Yes, we got to first go back and take a look at all those agreements to ensure that the people who promised to do what they said they were going to do have actually done what they said they were supposed to do. That's the first thing. That's real simple. You get your lawyers, you get your people in the room and say, have they met all their milestones? Have they met their benchmarks? If they haven't, then we have to have a real hard conversation. Future community benefits agreements will be much different because I'm one who believes that the community needs to really be meaningfully involved in the process. But there are very few things that you need to hide in secrecy and announce to the public and then have this rush process that they use, which is stacked against the community really being involved. And so I've been supportive of lowering the thresholds for where those agreements stand because my administration will be much more transparent. People will get information much more in the beginning of a situation versus at the end of a situation where the project is presented to the community. When I talk about, initially I talked about neighborhood empowerment, strengthening block clubs. These are the people that you need to bring in the process because we need people who are empowered in our city, who believe that they can impact and change policy. That creates a much more vibrant city. It creates a city where people actually are engaged in what they do. If we got an engaged citizenry in our community, we can deal with issues of crime. We can deal with how our children act in our communities because everybody's pulling together. People say that's idealistic. I say, but we got to have an idea about something.
Idealistic, we're in Rome again.
Yeah.
On one side you got really poor, and on the other side you got really rich, and there's no basis
well,
for middle class to come back into the
rich
city.
have gotten
That's
richer.
right.
I mean,
That's
COVID
right.
is almost as if COVID was designed for rich people to get richer.
Well, you know, it looks like that. It looks like that.
And you know, and that leads right into this
800
question.
million just floating around.
Yeah.
That leads right into this question.
I can use $1.
Say again.
I can use $1. That 800
Oh.
million.
Yeah. Okay. Black and brown businesses have suffered under the current administration. Anthony Adams, what are your plans to correct this inequity in contracts and employment opportunities?
Well, my philosophy is Detroit first. That we have local businesses that can perform services, and I'm trying to figure out why they aren't performing services. And so when you look at contracting levels, now our contracting levels are less than 5% of the city spend, and the city spends roughly $600, $700 million a year. That's an abomination to me. That's got to change. It's a matter of emphasis and focus. How do you structure your bid packages so that the local business can actually participate? It may take you a little more time on the front end to structure what you need to structure, but if the benefit is we got local businesses that are working and doing what we need to have done, then it strengthens our core economy. Oftentimes we know that when you work for the city, you know, your pay is late. So how do we work with our banks and provide you with lines of credit so that you can do the work and get your pay on time, and then we pay off your line of credit? There's a lot of creative things we can do a little differently.
Are banks coming back into the city? Because from what I understand, banks always have to give a little money to communities they're in, so they've been kind of defraying outside of the
Trump
city.
kind of cut that program back in terms of
So might they
CRA.
come back to the city then?
Well, with the consolidation of banks, you know, we're going to end up seemingly with two banks after all this consolidation is done because they're just gobbling each other up. But the question is, if you're holding money from the city and they hold billions of dollars in city money, then the question is, why are you not lending to local businesses in the city of Detroit when you're holding taxpayer money in your account?
Could we ever start up our own bank?
You can. There's actually there's been some. I've looked at some concepts about that. I think the state of New York has actually looked at creating their own bank. It's a theoretical exercise to take a look at it. But at the end of the day, when you look at the capital requirements of having to manage something else outside of your core service, that's not really our core service. We can impact people more by how they use our money, direct them how we need our money used, versus trying to compete with institutions that have the infrastructure to do what they need to do.
But you know, that's what's hypocritical, pushing out Detroit businesses when businesses are coming in for the Detroit branding. The word Detroit makes money. Kids from Ann Arbor come to Detroit to begin their art careers. They want that zip code.
Well, we got 38,000
Detroit
small
sells.
business. We have 38,000 small businesses in the city of Detroit. We have the lowest rate of entrepreneurial growth of any other major city in America. Documented. And so when they talk about, and part of that is we have to also look at the problems we have at the state level with respect to a climate that is not encouraging for business formation, growth, and development. Hell, when we have our companies like Ford building, futuristic battery plants in states outside of Michigan, that tells you all you need to know about the business climate here in the state of Michigan. So we've got to focus in on strengthening our core businesses, but we also have a thriving entrepreneur class. I was talking with some people the other day, and they were complaining about the people selling rugs at the corners, or the people selling barbecue, the people selling clothing. I'm saying I respect the hustle because they could be doing something completely different.
That's right.
That's not as positive. Now that is an issue. And we have all these vacant commercial storefronts. I'm saying, why are we not going to these folks? You have people out riding the city.
And why are people in Detroit paying the same commercial taxes as NYC?
Well, because
that's crazy.
you had a tax structure that's developed over the years, and it's a high tax structure, and in part because when the state began to strip away resources from the city ultimately began to impose more and more taxes on itself.
But the corporations aren't paying those taxes.
Well, that's because when they changed the changes in state law have basically sucked all the revenue at the state level, and then the state distributes the money through formulas, many of which are not helpful for the city of Detroit.
It started
the
with
formulas
education.
that they have, education, state tax, sales tax. Now, if we could give us lottery sales tax in the city of Detroit, that would be a wonderful number to get. But of course,
what happened to the lottery?
It goes up to the state.
What happened to that money?
That's the question that we always
say it's going to schools.
Yeah, we never see
First
it.
cigarettes, now schools.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, I have another, being a senior citizen myself,
Okay.
85 years old, this is a question I want to ask you.
85 is the new 55. Man.
Is it really?
I can't keep up with you, John.
Well,
So you late.
Tell my back that.
Right.
I'm on a cane.
Okay.
I was ranked in the top 2 sprinters in the world.
Right.
That's a lifetime ago.
Right.
Right now, I need a cane to get around sometimes, and I don't like to be seen with this cane, but sometimes I don't have any damn choice.
You look dangerous with the cane.
Well,
because
if
you
I had a
pick
sword
it up
in
and
it,
point at
maybe,
people
but-
too.
Yeah. Anyway,
Kung Fu cane.
that was another life. But what is your strategy and program to help senior citizens?
Our senior citizens are a warehouse in the city. No ifs and buts about it. When you go to senior buildings, you see them sitting outside. Their recreational activities, sitting outside and talking and shooting the breeze. I believe that our seniors need to be much more engaged in a lot of opportunities. For example, Detroit Zoo is always complaining about not having enough volunteers.
Yeah.
And they have a very skewed relationship with respect to people who actually volunteer for work there. Yeah. It's not very diverse. So I'm saying we have thousands of seniors sitting in our senior buildings every day that are dying for an opportunity to get out. Why are we not providing transportation services to get them out there? Why are we not allowing them to volunteer and work in our art museum? Why are we not bringing them into our schools to provide mentoring services to our young people? Why are we not bringing our young people to them so that they can be some intergenerational contact?
Yeah.
When we were growing up, it was not unusual to have a grandmother in the house, a great-grandfather, somebody old was around all the time that you could, the wise old head. Why do we don't have those relationships now? So we wonder why kids aren't connected, because they have no connection with their past. They can't relate to someone who is 50. Hell, I'm 40 now. So we gotta free up our seniors and provide them with the services and hold the people that's supposed to be providing the services to them accountable. You see, what happens in Detroit is that they're very cozy relationships that exist. No one wants to poke the bear because we all kind of in the club. We gotta get out the club. We gotta push people. We gotta say, why are you not doing what you're doing? What are your metrics for how you measure your success? How do I look at that to see, in fact, you're successful? And if you're not successful, how do I hold you accountable to direct the services to where they need to get directed? I always talk about a holistic approach. I'm saying we got to look at the total picture. We have senior citizens who have great intellect and wealth and knowledge that
Absolutely.
we're not sharing
Absolutely.
that. We have a lot of young people with energy
Half
that
the
don't have
civics right
direction. How do we merge our systems together to allow people to intergenerationally communicate with one another? I think it will create a much stronger community and connection with people who will respect one another, respect you for your age, respect you for your wisdom, and respect you for your youth. Because young people are really big on this respect thing.
We have about a minute and a half yet.
Okay.
Do you mind giving us your vision of Detroit?
Man, it's a city. It's a city that works for everyone. It's a city that recognizes the people who work hard and need to get services. It's a city that recognizes that when people need something for their house, that they can get the resources they need to fix their house. It's a city that respects the young people in this community and that doesn't sue young people for protesting about trying to transform our belief as they did with the Black Lives Matter. It's a city that believes in affordable water, affordable housing policy, and a commitment to service for the people who actually live here. We need a person who is a public servant, who embodies the best of those qualities, who believes that people are worth the fight, which is why I'm in this race. That's my vision for our city.
Politics has room for compassion.
Yes.
And I've just been a long-time admirer
Well,
of
thank
all
you.
the work you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been
You've
an
done
honor.
some great things for the city, and hopefully you can do some great things for the city as mayor.
Well, we keep telling everybody that the momentum is on our side. That is the irony of this whole thing. They want to squelch it. The momentum is on our side.
We've got to get
That's
the
true.
word out. We've got to get the young folks involved in your campaign, and we've got
And the
just
young
about a
peop-
week now.
And
We've
they
got-
might be leaving, but they're
Okay.
coming back, our young folks.
Come back.
They're
We've
coming
gotta-
back too.
We've
We
got
got
to
to
bring
get them back.
Yeah.
We've got to bring more
We
of them
got
back.
a huge diaspora.
All right.
And I got to do one last poem because I always do
Okay.
this, even though I do it on WCHB too, and they're always calling to try to get me fired for saying it. But Uncivil Warfare is a poem that I wrote on the 6th of January. The 6th of January, that
Right.
infamous day.
And so, yeah.
On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. And you know, I've been catching all kinds of hell for this poem because I say it on both shows. But I mean, what would they have done to Benedict Arnold if he'd been caught?
Yes.
What did
Oh,
they
they
do
were
to
gentlemen.
the
Gentlemen never did it to each other.
Well,
They had to hang Benedict Arnold, and
you
they
know-
did execute the Rosenbergs, you know, for treason.
Well, yeah,
Now,
but
what
they weren't
did Trump
exactly.
do on the 6th of January? What did he do? He fomented an insurrection. That is an act of not treason. It's an act of sedition.
But unfortunately,
guess
the execution can't be in Michigan.
it's a federal crime.
Well, yeah, well,
You actually could
so-
be federal crime.
So let's take him to
Yeah.
Leavenworth. You know, get the gas chamber
We'll
out.
get it up there. Yep.
And you know, if you're opposed to capital punishment, and some people morally are opposed to it, including me, you know.
Right.
But
You're such a
in-
poet.
But in the case of Donald Trump, if we can't put him in the gas chamber,
I got a few world leaders for you to add on.
oh, I know.
Okay.
About
Okay.
137 Congress people, for example,
Yeah,
you know,
and
who are all
Pandora's box
Trumpists.
people too. Yeah.
But you know, if we can't put this guy in the gas chamber, let's at least see him in federal prison. Okay, you've been listening to the John Telford Show, and I got to give you something. I don't know where it is. Here it is.
And thank you for listening to the John Telford Show. We have been spending time with mayoral candidate Anthony Adams. Please do not forget to vote on November 2nd and put our voice in and make a change for the city. And you've been listening to the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host Ananda Samathar-Karado on Wjzz Cool TV on Thursdays from 10 to 11 in the morning, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It was the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said, Dr. John Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Listen also to Dr. Telford on WCHB AM 1340, Saturday mornings at 9:30, Monday evenings at 6:30, and today at 1 p.m. Tune in again next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And thank you for listening.